Let's spend 10 minutes together to change your life.
I'm the manager type, so that kind of leads me on to my next question, but I'm sure Adam's going to want to ask you about how you finance right. But you can manage right once you know who's moving into your, I don't want to say unit, because you don't say units too, which I think is, I wrote that down. You said that once. You don't call them units, you call it homes. And you have to understand it's people moving in. So the manage right component is my question for you. How do you really manage it right?
That's a really challenging question. And the problem is in the C space, the affordable housing space, for lack of a better word, management sucks. They've been looked over, and we're trying to build an enduring organization. And remember I talked about values? Well, we have our core values for our companies. It's people first, make it happen, extreme ownership, unwavering ethics, and growth mindset. And we're really trying to what we call become the Chick-fil-A of apartments. And it's really difficult to do. I'm not going to lie to you, especially over the last couple of years. It's been really hard to hire and retain a lot of people because of this gig economy, all this free money. Now it's becoming less. For us, we love this part of the market right now because it's easier to hire and it's easier to find deals. But that manage right, really words do matter. I think we call them residents. We don't want to call them tenants. We call them apartment homes. We don't call them units. And I think the best thing that you can possibly try to do for the culture of your employees is to make them have empathy. There's a video Chick-fil-A put out years ago, and it has all their customers walking in, and it has their employees watching them and serving them, and it has the customers thinking and having these thoughts about their life. Well, somebody's going for cancer treatments, somebody lost their job, somebody's depressed. And I like that because you're having empathy for the customer coming in. And it's not like, oh, it's just a unit. Well, it's a resident there. Their hot water heater went out. They need to go for an interview. I mean, so if you can empower the maintenance tech to make him understand that it's not just a hot water heater, this is somebody's life. This is somebody's memories. That's the challenging part because you have to create net promoter scores. You've got to create surveys, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. When you're smaller, you can handle it yourself, but as you get bigger, it's really important to start implementing systems, and you are the leader of the company, and that's what we're trying to emulate. We just had our State of the RAN fam this morning. Every quarter at 8:30, we have a 30-minute meeting with the entire crew. There's about 90 people on the property management side. There's about 10 people on the Jake and Gino side. And that really meeting is really to highlight shout outs, wins for the team, to show them where we're going for the future and try to build that culture. But if you're small and you're starting out, put yourself in the resident's shoes. You're renting the apartment and something goes wrong and they call you and it takes you 2 weeks to fix that unit or that town or that home. How would you feel? Put yourself in their shoes, and then things will change a lot quicker. And you're like, oh, okay. But as far as manage rights systems go, there's a couple things that I would have everybody do right now. I would create a property log. Every single property that you have has to have its own log. Like you said, we have 40 properties. I think we have 32 or 33 LLCs spread over 1,700 units. I wish we had done it sooner. Around 3 or 4 years ago, every single property needed to get its own log. And what that log has, it's got a log of when was the last time they did a stripe and seal, when was the last time we power washed, gutters, when was the last time any work was done on the job, on the property, all utility services. It's really a detailed account of each property, because if and when you want to change property management companies or hire a new manager, all the information is contained therein. And the second thing that I would say is we create a weekly pulse. Every week we shoot out our KPIs from every single property to all of our investors and to the entire team for them to see it. That weekly pulse is important. If you have third-party property management, you still want to get some kind of reports, or at least get on the call at the minimum every 2 weeks. Every week would be better. And this doesn't need to be an hour call. This is a 15-minute call. And you have to decide what KPIs or key performance indicators you want. We love delinquencies. We love vacant unrented. We like to see how many units are available. We like to see lease terminations. We like to see evictions. So it's a pretty detailed document, but it's not hard to put together. We've actually got VAs putting these documents together for us, and they go out every week. And if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. That's the problem that we saw early on. Getting in front of it and being able to look at the doc and say, oh, wow, our delinquencies are 10 grand this month on the second week. How do we avoid that? Or what can we do? Instead of getting the document at the end of the month when the month is past and it's too late. So I think those are two things that you could implement today to help your manager work more efficiently.
I know you mentioned about internalizing the management company. Is there a certain number of units before someone should look to basically?
Bro, that's a great question. I have to sound like an attorney, and I have to say it depends, because that's a hard question. For us, we were just stupid. We didn't know what we were doing. We started managing our properties from day one. Jake wanted to leave his job, so he's like, hey, I'm going to manage these properties. So our first 25 unit, I remember we were grossing 13 grand a month. He was generating 10% in property management fees. He was making $1,300 a month in management fees. The second property, 3 months later we bought, had another 10 grand. So we're 23 grand a month in gross revenues. We drop his fee down, I think, to 8%. So he's still making about, almost 2 G's a month managing it. But we loved it because we learn by doing. That's how we learn. So a lot of our students, what they do is they'll start out managing themselves. Then at, let's say, 75 or 100 units, they may go and hire a property management third party. Then at 300 to 400 units, they're like, oh, wait, I can bring this back into house, because now all of a sudden I've got syndications and I'm a better manager than they are. It really depends upon the comfort level of the individual, and are they willing to make the sacrifice to manage these properties? And also, Adam, the other question would be are you looking to scale to 10,000 units real quick, or are you looking to be a little bit more methodical? Because for us, we can outgrow our infrastructure. We can comfortably do 300 units a year, because that means we're going to need to hire at least 6 property managers, probably 8 or 9 maintenance techs. So that has to formulate into the equation itself. If you're just out there syndicating, raising capital, using third party, then I don't think you have to bring it in-house. But at some level, you may want to bring it into house. Understanding what your metrics are for success is important. We have what we call PPU, profit per unit. We love that profit per unit metric. We want to get between $250 and $300 profit per unit. That's very hard to do with a large portfolio with third party. It's challenging to do. So we'll sacrifice owning less units, but having more equity in each one of those units and being able to control the cash flow for ourselves. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you so much. The last part of this, I guess, how do you finance it, right? But what is tips on that?
Finance right is such a fun leg, especially in this part of the market cycle, because we've got creative financing coming back. And for those of you that want to learn about creative financing, we've written a book with our coach, Bill Ham, called Creative Cash. If you want a copy, just email me, Gino at jakeandgino.com. I'll even send you guys a PDF copy, because what we saw early on when we started in that part of the market cycle in 2011 and 12, financing was challenging. Debt was hard to do. And we were financing deals by seller financing. And, when the deals started coming, 15, 16, 17, seller financing started going goodbye, because it's much easier. Just put a property and you don't need to use creative financing. So for us, over the last year and a half, we've done 2 creative finance deals. And a lot of our students are using seller financing, because these mom and pops, they're underutilizing, rents are low. You can't get it financed traditionally from a bank. They've got a ton of equity. So it's a win-win. If you understand how to structure it and understand how to educate them on, hey, do you really want mailbox money? Do you want to defer some of those capital gains? It's an awesome strategy. I think the other 2 things is syndications. I mean, once you've maxed out, Jake and myself, in 2018, we did our first syndication, because we just started running out of capital. We started running out of funds. We did 3 syndications, a great stopgap. We were able to raise, I think, a little over $10 million for those 3 deals. We've subsequently exited those 3 syndications, and we only buy internally now. But that was a great stopgap for us to start raising some capital, getting other investors on board, and I think spreading our risk as well. We went into another market. We got into much bigger assets. We had a 132 unit, a 250 unit, and 128 unit syndicated deals. So it would enable us to scale. And I think the third component to financing right in this part of the market cycle, believe it or not, is credit unions. We're using credit unions right now in our three assets: 6.75% interest rate, 25-year AM, 2 years of interest only, 5-year term. I mean, those are some great terms right now. And I know not if rates go down, just when they go down. And they will go down in the next 2 to 3 years. Everyone's saying rates, they're not going to go down tomorrow, but they will. And we're buying deals on actuals today. We're buying assets on actuals that cash flow today. Well, we'll just matriculate these assets in the next 12 to 18 months. When they're ready to refinance, we'll refinance them out to agency. But I would have a tip for everybody. Community banks may be a little bit of a challenge right now, but I think credit unions are phenomenal. And I don't want to say they're well hidden. They just weren't prominent in the multifamily space. They didn't have to be a couple of years ago, because, you're going to agency, you're going to community banks, you're getting 3.5%, 4% rates. It was hard to compete with that. But I think credit unions have done a great job in the multifamily space over the last 2 years.
So even that one, the unions. Does somebody out there need to first try to get certain credit in order, similar to working with the bank and their criteria?
It's actually interesting. Credit unions, I didn't even know this. They're not a bank and they're not for profit, which is really interesting. You go there, you sign up, you become part of the credit union, you open up an account, and they're a little bit more challenging with the paperwork, but not any more challenging than the agencies. And we've done 2 deals with them so far, and we're closing 3 deals. These next 3 deals we're doing with them. I love working with them, to be completely honest with you. They're awesome. Their fees are so much cheaper than agency. I don't want to misquote it, but I mean, I think maybe a 0.5% origination fee. They're not in it for these big fees. They're in it just to place the credit union's capital to make a return. So when they're lending at 6.75, they're making really good money on the money that they have in their accounts and their demand deposits.
So much.
Yeah, and this
During
very, very
these 30
informative.
minutes. Another thing we do have in common, though, is that we really prioritize our family time. That's a big driver of why we went into real estate. It gives us that work-life balance. Why don't you just talk to us a little bit about how you structure your day, how you prioritize, family with work? What does, even a day in a life look like for you?
Well, things have changed for me dramatically. I mean, early on when I was in the restaurant business, I would go to work at 10 o'clock. So I'd get up around 8 o'clock in the morning. I homeschooled the kids. I literally would sit there for 30 or 40 minutes, which is great for me because it helped me with my faith. I was actually learning things that I had no idea, things that I never learned. I can rattle off all 50 states right now to you, the capitals. So I learned some pretty cool things. But, as that went on and I got out of the restaurant industry, I really started focusing on the real estate. And the great thing about it for me was in both jobs that I've had, both industries, the kids came to work with me. So they all worked at the restaurant. They all worked as hosts, hostesses. My son was a busboy. So they worked in the business. So I always wanted them to be around me in the industry to see, Dad's going to work. Oh, he's going to work to provide for the family. And then when I started Jake and Gino and I started buying properties, well, it was a great transition for them to come to our events, for them to be part of the book writing process, for them to see what's going on. So as far as for me, I think family and business, and this may sound a little crazy to some people, but if you're running a family and you're running a business, they're very similar. You should have mission statements for both. You should have core values for both. And you should dedicate time to both. Now, unfortunately for me, I've sacrificed a lot. I can't go out and play golf with buddies on the weekends. I can't go out and do trips with other friends because that's taking time away from my family. So, you have to choose. Remember your values. I even know if I did that stuff, I probably would feel bad because I know deep down inside that I really should be spending Sunday with the kids and not 8 hours on a golf course. So those are things that you need to flesh out. So for me, spending time with them during the day, like I'm at home right now, I'm going to have lunch. My daughter, 14-year-old, made meatballs. I taught her how to make meatballs. She makes some kick-ass meatballs, by the way. So just spending time and grabbing time and being flexible, taking them to events and spending time with them, but also not being afraid about talking about money, even when I have struggles with money, being transparent with your kids. And I'll just say one more thing. As a parent, don't ever be afraid to say sorry to your kids. One of the hardest things for an Italian from New York to do. To admit guilt, to admit that they did something wrong. But once you're able to do that, the relationship completely changes and they see that, hey, you don't have to be perfect as a parent because no one's perfect. And if they grow up with that picture of you as perfection, how are they going to actually try to emulate that? It's really hard to be perfect yourself. So as a parent, be transparent, be honest. And also just do what they want to do sometimes. If they wanted to watch Daffy Duck last night at 8 o'clock, do I really want to sit on the couch for 20 minutes? Not really. But I sat there, I sucked it up, and I watched Daffy Duck last night. You feel me, right, brother? You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Same thing. We actually have great work balance. So we actually went to our property last week. We took the whole family on the trip. We made it into like a work and fun.
Yes.
It's the most incredible thing to do.
That's the pro of being in the hospitality industry, is that we could
Yeah, we're tree climbing in the morning,
book our own hotel.
meeting with contractors in the afternoon. It's just,
Yeah, it really is. See, that's your value. See what happens? You light up. That's your passion. You're doing something you like. And listen, if you can't scale that and everyone's telling you to scale and go bigger, it's okay. I had a podcast with a gentleman yesterday. His name is Mark Ferguson, and he's been investing in Denver for 15 years. He went out and bought a laundromat. Why would he buy a laundromat? He's collecting quarters. That's not something he can scale. That's something he really likes. He really enjoys. So if it's something you like and you enjoy, you don't have to kill that business just by thinking you need to scale it to the moon. You can figure that out later on. Just enjoy what you're doing right now. And if you can enjoy what you're doing right now, everything will take care of itself down the road.
Yeah, 5,000%. Well, Gino, we'll let you go eat your meatballs at your daughter. But I don't. Sure, you know, some other reports to look at. I should also just mention you're a best-selling author of 3 books. What is the one next to your
Funny
bedside?
thing is, I read that multiple times. He showed it on the screen.
Sending you guys this book. I just wrote this book right now. It's launching next week. It's called Baby Money Soldiers. Great book for young adults and kids. It teaches all about personal finance, understanding that you are the general of your financial battlefield, and you need to learn how to deploy your baby money soldiers into battle, to go out and take out over the properties, to pull some of the baby money soldiers off the battlefield sometimes, understanding that if you can control, and you have control, and it doesn't matter how many baby money soldiers you have. That's what people have the misunderstanding. It really comes down to mindset and how you deploy your resources. And once you start to deploy them more efficiently, voila, they start growing. And as they start growing, you have more to deploy. And the more you deploy, the more they procreate and the more they can deploy. And it just starts snowballing. I think just people don't understand basic financial intelligence. And I'll end it by saying people with financial intelligence can change the world for the better. And that's what I'm trying to do through Jake and Gino and through the podcast and through the videos.
I love your mission. I mean, it's very inspiring, and I hope it's incredible information that we shared today. So I really think everyone's going to enjoy it.
Thanks, Gino.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.